16th Tissot Sprint, perched next to the spectacular Bass Strait coastline. It's all eyes on the weather, and whether Jorge Martin can power to a 5th straight Tissot Sprint win. Points precious at this stage of the season as the title running continues at Phillip Island. It's time to race in MotoGP. So the Phillip Island circuit, the 33rd Australian Grand Prix here this weekend. And what a circuit it is. 4.4 kilometres in length, 2.76 miles, 12 corners, 5 right, 7 left, 900 metre the Gardner Straight. Jorge Martin blitzed away all-time lap record in qualifying yesterday, a 1:27.246, although he ran out of rear grip, didn't he, and finished 5th in the main event, the Australian Grand Prix yesterday. Sector 1 into the Doohan Corner, the Southern Loop. Sector 2 starts with the breathtaking Stoner Corner. The circuit fast and flowing and demanding through Sector 3, through Lukey Heights turn 9, and then you come out of turn 12, 4th gear onto the Gardner Straight. Good afternoon then, and welcome back to what is a very wet, wild and windy Phillip Island, as we are, well, we hope, and what the plan is, to be about 45 minutes away from the start of the 13-lap Tissot Sprint. We've had heavy rain, we've had strong gusting winds approaching 60, 70 kilometres an hour here in Phillip Island. Having had gloriously sunny conditions on Friday. We had a full dry day yesterday, and we had an epic, a classic, full-length 27-lap Australian Grand Prix, which was moved to Super Saturday because of the inclement weather forecast for this part of South Australia. The forecast, sadly, which were bang on the money, because we've had the rain, we've certainly got the strong, powerful winds, and we've just seen, unfortunately, the deterioration in the conditions. The early Moto 2 race was red flagged as the lead group started lap 10. But fingers crossed, the plan is, as we mentioned, to have the 13-lap Tissot Sprint getting underway, lights out, at 1 p.m. local time here in Australia, in the company of Matt Bird in the commentary box, with Lewis Sotheby, Simon Crayfart down in pit lane and on the grid. Lewis, it was an unbelievable Australian Grand Prix yesterday. Huge congratulations to Johann Zarco, the 120th Premier Class rider in history to win in the elite class, and his 120th MotoGP start as well. In a race that ebbed and flowed, Jorge Martin gambling from pole on the Michelin soft rear tyre, fading on the last lap, 8 corners away from a sensational victory. He took the checkered flag 5th, the top 5 covered by just a second. Pecco Bagnaia increasing his world championship lead to 27 points in 2nd place. Heroics and a big smile and big cheers from Gazrini Racing's Fabio Gian Antonio on the podium for the first time. Brad Binder right in the mix as well, but this is a totally different proposition. Unfortunately, the weather gods have not smiled on us on race day here on Sunday. The aerial display team are still putting on a show. We hope the world's best riders will be able to put on a spectacular show in that 13-lap Tissot Sprint, which is a tough act to follow after that unforgettable Australian Grand Prix yesterday.
Another Phillip Island thriller, as you say, in conditions that couldn't be really more different than what we've got here today. These are exactly the kind of conditions that we expected, that have been forecast for around a week now. When we were in Indonesia last weekend, we were already looking ahead at the Australian Grand Prix weekend and thinking Sunday looks a little bit sketchy. That was what necessitated, as you say, the switch of the Tissot Sprint to today and the full-length Australian Grand Prix to yesterday, which Johann Zarco won in dramatic fashion. It was a race where we saw Jorge Martin bolt from the start on that soft rear tyre. Plenty behind him, with the exception of Marc Marquez and Pol Espargaro, were on the medium rear tyre. Those two tyre strategies met in the middle in a thrilling final lap as 5 riders went for the victory all together into Miller Corner. It was Zarco that came out the other side as the race winner. as Prima Parent Racing got victory, but not perhaps from the rider that they expected going into the Australian Grand Prix. Zarco, MotoGP winner Jorge Martin, cursing his tyre selection before that 27 lapper yesterday.
Full credit, full respect to the hardy souls, the Australian fans who have braved the elements here today. A crowd of near 20,000 have come to the circuit. We've had Moto3 action over the full 21-lap race distance. This, though, was yesterday a last lap that's going to live long in the memory. The fading grip of Jorge Martin's rear tyre on the inside at turn 4. He was 8 corners away from holding on for the victory. At one stage on lap 12 of 27, his teammate Johan Zarco was 5 seconds behind Martin. That was a lunge on the inside of Martin, not thinking about the championship at all, was he there, the Flying Frenchman? Coming through as well was Bagnaia to take an important second place. Look, there's the head shake coming from Martin. He knew at this point it wasn't only the victory that was slipping through his grasp, it was also the podium as Binder and Gian Antonio came through late on as well. And Johan Zarco powered through the third sector. Vigia attacking hard through turn 8 on Martin. Binder was also going to come through with a daring move around the outside of Martin, who had no drive grip whatsoever on that soft rear tyre. And this was the best moment of Johan Zarco's career when we could finally crown him a MotoGP Grand Prix winner. 2,533 days since his last win in Grand Prix racing, Valencia 2016, and we got the backflip back. Great to see. The Australian fans loved it. We loved it. Millions of fans all around the world loved it because it was some show.
And no one can begrudge Johan Zarco a first MotoGP victory. Of course, he'd been sort of close to the edge on a few occasions, 11 times to be exact. He'd finished in second place, but this was his first final taste of the podium Prosecco for first place. And Johan Zarco rewarded for his patience and rewarded for his tyre management through the 27-lap Grand Prix. Success stories everywhere you looked on that podium yesterday, weren't there? With Johan Zarco, the race winner, Pecco Bagnaia rewarded for his cleverness, you have to say, in keeping his medium tyre under control for second place, and Fabio Gian Antonio rewarded for all of the pain he's been through this season by taking that first podium.
I tell you what, perfect planning prevents poor performance, doesn't it? They've got their stall set out and they are ready for lunch.
Winter hats on.
Save us some, please, because it looked like it was pretty tasty. Yeah, protect themselves under the umbrellas. Not putting them off their lunch break here as we build up towards the Tissot Sprint. Raincoats, ponchos, umbrellas, if you can hold on to them, have been the order of the day this morning. Winter hats. I bet there's some fans who've got thermals on. It's been barely ambient temperature wise into double figures, 12 degrees at the chilliest part of the day. Not easy for the birds to keep control and not easy for the riders to keep control in these high wind conditions. A full credit as well to our helicopter crew, the pilots and our onboard camera team up there, because no mean feat to bring us these brilliant coverage in these gusting windy conditions. Can't even see many surfers out there today as the waves crash onto the nearby Bass Strait coastline. And you can see there the Australian flag above the podium, fluttering hard as it has been since we arrived. I was actually woken up overnight at around 3 o'clock this morning. 5 o'clock as well was that the winds were beating against our seafront hotel. Always a fantastic Grand Prix. Wonderful scenery, great location, 140 kilometres south of Melbourne, nestled in this beautiful part of South Australia. There's only there is only Tasmania between us and Antarctica, I think, and the South Pole. And fair to say, we're getting some like Arctic conditions, aren't we, at the moment?
We certainly are. It's the wind that's the major problem here as we look ahead to this Tito Sprint, which is scheduled to get underway in 35 minutes' time. We've raced in wet conditions before. We've had the sprint in wet conditions already so far this year. Of course, back at Silverstone earlier this year, we had a rain-affected Tissot Sprint. but it's the wind that is the major problem, and the cold temperatures. In winds such as this, you just need to cast your minds back to 2019. Free practice 4, we saw Miguel Oliveira suffering that high-speed accident coming down the Garda straight into Doon Corner, where he was essentially blown completely off the racetrack. These are some high-level discussions that are going on, presumably in terms of whether this Tito sprint is going to happen at all. It's scheduled to get underway in 35 minutes.
We just saw there Carlos Espeleta, senior management at Dorna Sports. We saw there Loris Capirossi. All of the MotoGP team managers then have been leaving behind the scenes meetings to discuss whether we are going to get this Tito sprint underway at 1 p.m. local time, or if we're going to maybe have a delay to see if it can be run at a later stage. Although, of course, we do know that the forecasts were predicting more severe conditions to hit Phillip Island later on this afternoon, so there was a very narrow window, you feel, a small window to get this Tito sprint underway. Let's go down, and of course hot footing it straight out of the meeting, the Cati Lenovo team manager Davide Tardozzi, who is with Simon.
Davide, can you give us your thoughts on conditions leading into the sprint?
Yeah, so far are very bad and getting worse and worse. So we'll see what what Dorna will decide. But for us, it's very dangerous. I don't want that somebody get hurt before to stop the race. So my personal decision is to stop the race. Unfortunately for the fan and the spectators, but we'll see what the race direction will decide.
Thank you, Davide.
Yeah, thanks, Simon, and thanks to Davide Tardozzi for coming to talk to us. Pretty clear the message then from the factory, the Cati camp, of course. Dorna, the FIM and the Australian Grand Prix Corporation have been so open to schedule changes to make sure yesterday, taking advantage of better weather conditions, that we had the full Australian Grand Prix. We all expected the worst of the weekend weather to hit here on Sunday. So Davide Tardozzi, I'm sure all team managers then in those meetings with IRTA, with the FIM and with Dorna have expressed their feelings about whether it is safe to proceed with the planned 13-lap Tito sprint. Of course, it's not just the riders' safety we have to think about, it's the spectators, and there's nearly 20,000 of them here. It's the many workers in and out of the paddock as well, the marshals who do such amazing work volunteering as they do at every Grand Prix. So it's rider safety that's paramount and at the forefront of organisers' minds, but it's also all the track personnel that are linked into the event, and of course those Australian fans who've come to see the world's best riders tackle the world's best circuit on the world's best machine. As soon as there is any kind of update, any kind of outcome on those behind-the-scenes meetings, we will inform you, of course, as soon as possible.
Saw Jack Miller there making his way into the KTM box. He would be as keen as anyone to get this Tito sprint underway, of course, racing in front of his home crowd. Wasn't the Australian Grand Prix he hoped for yesterday when Miller finished in 7th place. So just building front temperature in his tyres was going to be difficult. Say what, Jack, if this sprint goes ahead, it'll be even more difficult this afternoon with only 12 degrees as airframe temperature, but with those branches on those trees almost horizontal as the wind picks up. It was around this part of the day where we expected the wind to really pick up in intensity, and right on cue, the sprint has been cancelled.
So breaking news then here at the Australian Grand Prix in Phillip Island. The 13-lap Tito sprint that was due to get underway in just over 30 minutes time, after meetings with all MotoGP teams here and all of the series organisers, Dorna Sports, to the FIM and the Australian Grand Prix Corporation, in the interest of safety for riders, participants and fans. The Tito sprint here at Phillip Island has been cancelled due to the adverse weather conditions and, unfortunately, the forecast for no let-up in those conditions. So we're sorry to say, of course, we did everything we possibly could to make sure that this Australian Grand Prix was able to go ahead with the minimal of disruptions. We had the Australian Grand Prix yesterday afternoon, but unfortunately there will be no Tito sprint. That message just coming through from race direction I don't think anybody's told Enea Bastian anyway. He's coming to the back of the factory Ducati garage. He'll have to get out of those leathers very, very quickly, because the live breaking news here in Australia, the Tissot Sprint has been cancelled. The strong, powerful, gusting winds just making it unsafe for the 13-lap sprint to go ahead. So unfortunately, I'm afraid to say that is the end of the 2023 Australian Grand Prix.
And it's this exact forecast and these exact conditions which underline the decision that they made with the schedule yesterday to ensure that the Australian Grand Prix, the full-length Australian Grand Prix over 27 laps, did take place safely. It's a weather condition for that kind of equipment, isn't it? It's surfboard weather. The wind really has picked up here. Unfortunately, the spectators who have really shown their patience and really toughed it out through these horrible conditions, fortunately, will have to make their way home without seeing the Tissot Sprint here this afternoon. But they did see a 27-lap Australian Grand Prix, and the conditions that we now have in front of us underline that that was the smart decision.
Yeah, we wanted the show to go on. Sadly, we've been beaten by the elements. The show just can't go on safety grounds. Those young fans young and old, have certainly braved the elements. There's a nice hot pizza being taken there. So Paolo Campinotti and Gino Borsoi, management from Prima Pramac Ducati there. Well, their weekend ended in some style, didn't it? With Johann Zarco taking his first MotoGP victory for Prima Pramac Racing. 2/10 clear, he took the checker flag ahead of Pecco Bagnaia. So the fans, unfortunately, head to the exits. I hope they were here yesterday, because they saw and they witnessed one of the, not just the best Grand Prix of 2023, but one of the best we've seen for a good number of years. Alberto Puz, their HRC team manager, just coming to the back of the Honda garage to indicate to his crew that it's game over. We have had to call a halt to proceedings. And the Australian flags come down. Hold on to that one, sir, because not an easy proposition to keep hold of the brollies and the flags here in Phillip Island.
So we now move on to Buriram, of course, next weekend for the Thai Grand Prix. Pecco Bagnaia will go there with a 27-point World Championship lead over Jorge Martin, who didn't get the opportunity today to try and fight back from his last lap heartache yesterday. Martin 27 points back. Marco Bezzecchi 73 points off the World Championship lead, with 4 races and 4 sprints of this MotoGP World Championship still remaining. Thailand next weekend, of course, before a weekend off, and our final triple header beginning in Sepang before we go to Qatar for the penultimate round of the season, and the final round of the season in Valencia on the last weekend of November, as Luca Marini makes his way through the paddock. Luca Marini, sure, much as everyone else in this MotoGP field, in full support of this decision. It was the only decision to make, as you say. It wasn't just the current conditions, which were worsening. The rain was lashing down when that decision was made, but the forecast is for it to only deteriorate through the remainder of the day. It
was a unanimous decision amongst all the riders, teams and MotoGP management to move the full Grand Prix yesterday afternoon. Let's go down for some immediate reaction then to the sprint cancellation. Simon Crafar down in pit lane. Oh, no, obviously the wind and the rain is causing us a few tech gremlins as well, so we'll try and pick it up with Simon as soon as we possibly can. But if you are just tuning into our live coverage here from Phillip Island, expecting in about half an hour's time to see the 13-lap Tissot Sprint get underway, well, unfortunately, we've tried our utmost, but we've been beaten by the weather, which is a scenario which we did fear. That's why there was this tweak to the schedule to get the Grand Prix run yesterday. But confirmation on your screens then that the Tissot Sprint has been cancelled due to the weather conditions. And we move on then to round 17 in the Chang International Circuit in Buriram. The paddock will be leaving Australia tomorrow and making the 7 or 8 hour trip back into Asia, and then it's a short 1 hour hop up to Buriram where we expect to have much hotter conditions. So I'm not going to say drier conditions because
No.
cast your minds back to the Thai Grand Prix last year. Then for some immediate reaction then on the cancellation of this Tissot sprint, it's Crypto Data RNF team boss Wilco Zeelenberg who joins Simon.
Yes, a few team members just talking about, I think that Wilco's brave talking to me again this time. Wilco, yeah, okay, Wilco, thank you. Tell us your feelings on the decision.
Well, I think it was a great call yesterday to have the main race on Saturday. So we see clearly that, yeah, there is a lot of wind and a lot of rain, and for sure it's very, very tricky. And I think it's a good call to say, yeah, stop today and let's go to Buriram and try to find some better weather.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Wilco. Then thanks to Simon Crayford. This is great, isn't it, by Jack Miller.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be more disappointed than Thriller Miller in his home Grand Prix. He'd have been desperate to put on another show today, but he's come out of that KTM garage, he's jumped over the pit wall, he's run across the circuit, and he's posing for selfies and signing autographs with the Aussie fans. That's why he's one of MotoGP's ultimate showmen, isn't he? Great scenes as well. Luca Marini also coming over. Of course, there was going to be the rider parade, which unfortunately was a victim of the weather conditions this morning, but Jack Miller and Luca Marini showing what class acts they are. I think somebody might have got a cap, yeah. Somebody's going home with a very nice souvenir. In terms of the championship then, as we head to round 17 in Buriram, 4 rounds, 8 races remaining. Pecco Bagnaia, courtesy of his stunning second place in the Australian Grand Prix yesterday, 27 points clear of Jorge Martin, who've certainly been looking to avenge yesterday's late heartache, having led for 316 of the 324 corners in that Australian Grand Prix. He'd have been desperate to try and extend his golden run, I was going to say on Super Saturdays, but it's been, sadly, a soaked Sunday here in Phillip Island. It was going to be potentially a 5th consecutive sprint win for Jorge Martin. But these are great scenes, brilliant to see. Of course, the fans will be disappointed. We're all disappointed, of course. The last thing, this is, of course, the last thing that anybody wants to do is to have a cancellation, but it's something that is just completely out of our control. We can control a lot of things in MotoGP. We can't control the weather. As world champion Pecco Bagnaia also coming to the trackside to meet and greet the Aussie fans, who with these moments, the chance to meet their heroes, that's going to put a smile on their face, and they'll be going home happy now at least.
Yeah, they got to share a photo and share a selfie with the reigning world champion. And I think he will come out of this weekend, not as the big winner in terms of the race itself, but big picture, world championship. Pecco Bagnaia will have certainly signed for that, particularly when he woke up on Saturday morning after a shocking Friday.
I don't know if he was signing a pizza box or a cap there. I think somebody was holding both. I think he went for the cap. But he actually might have fancied a slice of pizza just to warm him up a little bit. He certainly earned
hot drink, I think.
He did. He earned a big slice of pizza in nearby cows, didn't he, after that second place yesterday. He just remains so ice cool. At one stage, he was well over 4.5 seconds behind Jorge Martin, and at that stage it's so easy to get swept up in the emotion, thinking about the championship and, well, if I stay as is and Jorge wins, I'm going to be 4 or 5 points clear in the standings. But he knew that Martin was going to hit big problems late on with that Michelin soft rear tyre. He knew his medium was going to really come into play late on. It's exactly how it panned out, and that's why Pecco Bagnaia heads to Buriram with that pretty decent buffer, although he was at pain to point out, Lewis, not the time to get carried away. This is not job done, far from it. Keeping his feet on the ground. He's been 66 points clear of Martin not too far long ago, so he knows how quickly the championship picture can change, so he'll be taking nothing for granted.
This time last week, before the Indonesian Grand Prix began, he was trailing Jorge Martin in the World Championship. It's very quickly turned around again in the space of 7 days for Pecco Bagnaia, and it will concern him that even though he did finish in second place yesterday and gain more points on Jorge Martin's speed was certainly not in any question yesterday as he bolted at the front of the field. Of course, that decision to go for the soft rear tyre in the end backfired, but Martin's pace from Friday morning, when he was quickest in practice one, the dominant and record-breaking pole position lap that he put in. Jorge Martin will take the positives from this Australian Grand Prix weekend. He showed that the speed is certainly still there. And if he can put everything together in Buriram, there's no reason to suggest that Jorge Martin cannot close that World Championship lead in once again.
We love MotoGP for the incredible on-track action it provides, but we love MotoGP as well because they're not just the fastest riders in the world, they're such cool guys, aren't they? As Jack Miller, Pecco Bagnaia and Luca Marini, look at that, even Luca's smiling with the fans as he comes out to pose for some selfies. There he is, look, Luca. There's going to be some nice mementos here for the weather-battered fans. Some of them are going to be going home very happy because they're getting shots here with the reigning world champion. We're back on track though, aren't we? In 5 days' time, the Chang International Circuit in Buriram, as we complete the first of 2 triple headers, which will build towards the deciding final races of this 2023 season. Is Pecco Bagnaia going to write his name in the history books and be the first Ducati rider ever to successfully defend the MotoGP crown, or does history beckon for Jorge Martin? He can still become the first independent team rider in the modern 4-stroke era to win. There's got some more to do. Jack's lost his cap. Now he's going to lose his boots. He's not bothered about getting some wet socks, is he? Fair play to Jack as another young fan gets a proper present. Look at the smile on his face. He's had his day made. He's had his year made, hasn't he? That young fan. What a souvenir. What an absolute top fella Jack Miller is. Not that we needed to know that, but look at that young fan's face. I don't think he can quite believe what's just happened as he gets one of Phillip Miller's boots. That is a heck of a souvenir. Top work, Jack.
Yeah, he is a classic Aussie superstar, isn't he? Did a Q&A with him yesterday in the MotoGP VIP Village, and he was on great form. I've got to say, I can't repeat all of what Jack Miller said in that Q&A. It was Jack Miller unfiltered, and the VIP Village guests certainly enjoyed his company.
Well, Jack Miller's out, mingling with the fans here who've braved the elements. Let's get some thoughts from KTM boss Francesco Guidotti, who is with Simon.
He is one of the few people outside the garage. All the garages down. This wind in the last 20 minutes has really picked up. Give us your thoughts, Francesco.
Yeah, it's not a matter of opinion. The wind is stronger and stronger, and every minute it's worse and worse. So it was the right decision not to start. It makes sense after the red flag, the Moto2, because of the wind. It didn't get better. It is worse. So yeah, I think it's the right decision not to start. Yesterday we know there was this risk. We did the main race yesterday for this reason. So yeah, it is like it is. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry for the fan here. Jack is out there to try to please them somehow.
I understand nobody asked him to. He went to do it.
Yeah, he just went out. He asked to have the chance to ride for one lap, to say hello to everyone. But yeah, then he just crossed the start-finish line and the start-finish straight and went there to say hello to everybody.
Hey, thank you for your time and look forward to see you and hear from you in Thailand.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Thanks to Francesco Guidotti. As he mentioned, you do feel for the fans who've come down to see this Tissot sprint this afternoon, but it just was not possible to run it in the optimum safety conditions, as we see Pecco Bagnaia conduct what is an unprompted meet and greet with the Aussie fans. Fair play to Luca Marini. He's going to be winning some popularity contests in Australia, isn't he, right now? He's even taking the phones and doing the selfies himself, isn't he? Great work by the Italian, who's had a tough weekend, of course, recovering from that fractured left collarbone at the Indian Grand Prix a few weeks ago. Not the highs of last weekend in Mandalika when he took his career first MotoGP pole position. As Pecco Bagnaia then will begin the journey very, very shortly back north into Asia, as we get set for the Chang International Circuit in Buriram, and he will do so when he jumps back on that factory Ducati GP23 for FP1 on Friday morning. he will do it with a 27-point World Championship lead over Jorge Martin, who will be ruining that choice of that soft Michelin rear tyre in the 27-lap Australian Grand Prix. Our coverage then of what has been a weather disrupted race day here, but a Saturday spectacle. That was MotoGP at its very, very best, at its finest. Our coverage will be coming to a conclusion very, very shortly here in Phillip Island. We thank you for joining us. We're so sorry that we couldn't get the Tissot sprint running as planned over 13 laps, but we look forward to your company in just 5 days' time as the thrilling MotoGP title chase resumes in the heat and humidity of the Chang International Circuit in Buriram. Here we go then. From Australia, we head north back into Asia. The Chang International Circuit, the OR Thailand.